Good morning. Welcome to a special Friday Breeders' Cup edition of the Handicappers Report. Thanks for joining us on this Friday morning, the 1st of November, and it is looking wintry out. I watched the weather last night. SETH, MERROW, SULLY, CROTTY watched the weather last night, and the weatherman said this is the last foliage report of the season because by tomorrow all the leaves will be off the trees, and pretty much they were right with the wind last night.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy last night. I don't know about you, but I woke up with, my whole neighborhood. I don't know how I had power, but the whole neighborhood was out. I live right behind Saratoga High School. They didn't have power, so it was pretty bad last night. But it's supposed to stay windy today, but it's not going to affect us.
If you're driving down the Northway, keep the hands on the steering wheel. There was a couple of points where, whoa, the wind hit the car, and yeah, it's still windy out there.
And, as you said, all the leaves are falling off, so, it's kind of the part of the year where I'm not a fan of because I'm not the biggest fan of winter, so.
And as I was thinking about this morning, leaves off the trees now, it's the 1st of November. That means leaves off the trees for another 4 months. We're in the first part here because the buds won't show up on the trees again until March sometime. So, but we will live vicariously watching Tampa when they kick off and Fairgrounds in a couple of weeks because Thanksgiving Day is a big day for them, and Gulfstream Park, of course. But this weekend, we will all be paying attention to the Breeders' Cup. Today, tomorrow, lots of good Breeders' Cup action. Before we jump into the Breeders' Cup card at Santa Anita, however, do want to alert you to, first, I want to alert you it's opening day at Aqueduct. And it's tied in also with the mandatory payout to the Empire 6. That was supposed to happen on closing day at Belmont last Sunday. They canceled after, a race or two because of the weather down at Belmont. And so that means that the mandatory pay shifts to today at Aqueduct. $279,000 in the pool. It's going to be a mandatory pay. Because of the Breeders' Cup, there's an early post time at Aqueduct today of 12 noon. The Empire 6 will kick off at about 2 o'clock. I think it was the fifth race today. 5th of 10 today? 5th of, 10. And so the Empire 6 kicks off at about 2 o'clock. Keep that in mind because everybody obviously will have focus on Santa Anita and the Breeders' Cup. But at the 20-cent increment, you can put a little ticket together and just take your shot at what will be a very, very big pool. Obviously, Empire 6, the PPs have been out for a few days, so folks have had a lot of chance to jump in and take a look. But keep that in mind this afternoon at Aqueduct. Also, Bet 100, Get 100 continues. That goes through tomorrow. If you sign up for a new Capital OTB bet account and sign up before tomorrow, bet in $100 through the day tomorrow, you will have Capital OTB put $100 into your account. So keep that in mind over the next couple of days. Bet 100, Get 100. Also, the team has been selected for the $3,000 Breeders' Cup bankroll. Mike Callahan is going to have $1,000 today. I'll have $1,000 the early part of tomorrow. Sully will have $1,000 the late part of tomorrow. The team's been selected. You should have been notified by email, but you can also go to capitalotb.com to check to see if you made the team. But I'm reminding folks because if you're on the team to stay eligible for your piece of the bankroll, you have to make a wager today and tomorrow. So keep that in mind. If you're on the bankroll team, do have to make a wager today or tomorrow. Do remember that there's a special Breeders' Cup bounty bet. There's $2,000, $2,100 plus up for grabs. All you have to do is play the Santa Anita Late Pick 5 tomorrow, Saturday with your Capital OTB bet account, and you're live for all or part of that bounty. That's tomorrow, a special Breeders' Cup bounty bet, Late Pick 5 at Santa Anita. And don't forget, as always, during the football season, football Sundays here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Come on down on Sundays and watch all the football action and all the racing action as well. Hopefully everybody is flush by Sunday after a couple of days of Breeders' Cup action. Sully, we're going to jump in on Friday, but it looks like 2 nice days. You'll be in tomorrow as well. We'll have a live Handicappers Report tomorrow looking at the Saturday card, but it really looks like 2 nice days of racing.
Yeah, and as it should be. I mean, this is kind of the Super Bowl of horse racing, and all throughout the racing year, it kind of leads up to this, and it's the biggest day in racing for the entire world. So it's a lot of fun, and this Friday's probably a little bit tougher than Saturday. The 2-year-old races seem to be a little bit tougher, but it's a phenomenal 10-race card this afternoon.
You have any horse you're really looking forward to? I will say, as I was driving in this morning, I was trying to think a clever horse or a big horse I'm waiting. Leinster. I'm going to take a little shot with him in the turf sprint and hope he can get back to that Troy performance up at Saratoga. And I think there's going to be a little value there in what may be the toughest race of the 2 days, the turf sprint. But I'm looking at Leinster.
Right. I'm probably the same race. I like Chimney Rock a lot in that race. And then a little bit later on, I like Sweet Melania in the juveniles turf. So those two should be at some decent prices. And I know you talked about the Empire 6, and I did see on Twitter before we went on, they are off the turf in New York today.
Oh.
So construct your ticket that way if you play the Empire 6.
Good info. Yeah, okay. All right, let's jump in. Santa Anita kicking off with breakfast at Santa Anita out there, 10:45. That means what? 11:45, 12:40, 1:45 our time. The first race at Santa Anita, the undercard leads into the Breeders' Cup races, but the marathon is a Grade 2 event. It'll be 1 3/4 miles. Your thoughts on the marathon?
Yeah, it's a fun race to kick off the Breeders' Cup weekend. You know, you get a 3-turn race in here. I went 5, 6, 4, and 2. Campaign on top. I think it's just going to be a little tough to beat Campaign. Joel Rosario and John Sadler. This is a big purchase. For a 4-year-old in here, they're all older. It's not going to make that big of an issue, but ran really well against Zulu Alpha and Arklow last time out. Mongolian Groom a couple starts back. A horse that comes from way off the pace, and I actually thought ran a pretty good at Brooklyn leading into the Pacific Classic. So a horse that loves the long distances and has raced against a lot better in here. As I said, Zulu Alpha, Arklow, Mongolian Groom, Marconi, Rocketry, Gift Box. So the horse has raced against a little bit better, and that's why you're seeing that 4 to 5 price. The 6 is Brave Nation. Got to be forwardly placed in here. I like the breeding with Windstar Farm and Pioneer of the Nile, John Sadler, Mario Gutierrez, a horse that raced well and beat Final Jeopardy last time out. That was at Sam Houston. We haven't seen this one since the end of September. On that type of a layoff, 10% for John Snow. Excuse me, not John Sadler. But a horse that looked great the last couple in some stakes action. Just trying to get a little bit of a price underneath. And then the number 4 is Zestful. A lot of speed with this one as well. It's going to try to, I think this horse sets the race up for Campaign in here. But a horse that's won 6 starts in a row. Pretty impressively, some of them, the last one at Los Al in a restricted stakes, winning that race by 6 with an 84 buyer. The speed could be dangerous, but I think it'll be tough to hold off Campaign.
I have it 6, 1, 4, and 2. I put Campaign on top too, and I know there is some local ownership tied in with this horse, Woodford Racing. Again, they're not based here, but there are some local connections. 2 for 3 over the Santa Anita Strip. Maybe more importantly, though, this horse proven it at marathon-type distances. You look underneath and what in the last 5 starts, we have 4 of them at 1.5 miles, and the horse runs very well. And so I think Campaign, given the trip, is going to be the horse to beat. It's in the post, gets a look from me as well. Also running longer distances all the way down the page, most of them, however, on turf. That's the question mark, but at Del Mar went in that 1.5 mile Cougar and ran a pretty good second behind Campaign. So does have a recent dirt start that was okay, so it's in the post in the mix. And Zestful also talk a lot about it at these marathon distances. People always, you get the horse that is the big closer in the Kentucky Derby, and folks think, oh, the 1.5 miles at Belmont. But speed is very dangerous at the longer distances, the marathon distances, because nobody wants to go too fast early, so the speed gets out there in front and lopes along. And so Zestful with the pace advantage may be very interesting around that final turn and into the stretch. In the opener at Santa Anita, I have it 6, 1, 4, and 2.
Second race this afternoon, allowance optional claimer, non-winners of one other than. 1 mile on the turf course for fillies and mares. What you see in race number 2?
I had it 9, 10, 1, and 11. I put Heather's Gray on top. Mike McCarthy trainee, comes out of a starter allowance win. That was a continuation of improving buyer figures really throughout the 6-race career. Every race has been an improvement. If that continues, this horse becomes very potent in here. But I think even a matchup of the last race. The horse could maybe even go back a couple of points and be right in the thick of things with this group. So a horse in some good form, perhaps good improving form, and class-wise I think is going to be a very nice fit as well. Heather's Gray on top. And Eddie Surprise in the second spot, also in good form, also comparatively speaking good numbers with this bunch. Last time out, ran in a very similar event right here at Santa Anita and was a good third. That was preceded by a couple of good second place finishes and similar tries down at Del Mar. So again, good form, seems logical as a contender. And Rayana in the third spot. 2 starts so far for Bob Baffert. The career debut is the one that kind of jumps off the page at me. That was last September. The horse then laid off until June, and that return was a little bit of a disappointment. I think comes back at a little bit of a reduced level as compared to the race last time. But clearly, only a couple of starts. This will be the third start. In the layoff between start 1 and start 2, and now the layoff since start 2, there are some issues with Rayana. So a little bit of a question mark there, but on October 7th, put in a pretty good workout. And you would have to think off of that, the horse back on her toes. And again, given what we saw in the career debut, I'll hope we get back to that. Second at Santa Anita, 9, 10, 1, and 11.
In the second race for me, I went 9, 8, 4, and 1. The number 9 on top. Same thing with Heather's Gray. I just think this one's in really good form for Michael McCarthy. It looked great last time out at the allowance level. At this mile distance, is going to get a jump on some of the deeper closers in here. The Baffert runner is most likely going to try to get to the lead. And also Opus 1, who I'm going to use third. So I think Heather's Gray gets the ideal trip in here and has ran well over the turf course at Santa Anita. It's going to be a lukewarm favorite in this spot, but still 3.5 to 1 in a really competitive field is never a bad thing. The number 8 in the second spot, that is Zuzana, and Zuzana's raced well against a lot of these other, a lot of familiar company that a lot of these horses have raced against. 5-year-old mare in here. Another closing speed in here. Kent DeSormo will be in the irons. And I thought the last couple, this horse has raced well. In the last 5 of the last 6, this horse at the allowance level really has been competitive. A couple starts back at this optional claiming level on a good surface going a mile in the 8th. Ran a really nice second from sitting in a really nice stalking role. And a horse that consistently takes a little bit of money from that morning line. I think the buyers fit up nicely with some of the shorter prices in here. And again, I think the turf course and where this horse is going to be placed, I think 5 to 1 is more than fair for the 5-year-old mare. And then the number 4, going to be the speed in here is Opus 1. Last time out, won by a neck, going wire to wire, run on 47 at Del Mar. Before the Del Mar meet, did break the maiden, faced winners and ran a really nice race, and then went off as an even money favorite the next time out, which was last time out. So I think the speed could be dangerous for the Richard Baltus runner. You get John Velasquez aboard, and as I said, besides the Baffert runner, I really don't see anyone else who wants to get to the lead besides the 6, who's at a huge price in this spot. And then maybe a little bit with the Rafael Bejarano on the number 7. But Opus 1 in the third spot for me. I want to use speed a little bit defensively in this race. But second race this afternoon at Santa Anita, 9, 8, 4, 1.
More undercard stakes action in race number 3. These are 2-year-old fillies, Calbreds, the Golden State Juvenile fillies. A couple $100,000 up for grabs. And these gals traveling 7 furlongs. Yeah,
these are never really easy, especially with the California breds. 11, 12, 8, and 1 for me. Been studying her coming out of the Chandelier at Santa Anita. The horse ran 4th behind Bass. Bass is going to be really played this weekend, comical as well. We know for being a really nice horse as well. They ran a 49-2 last time out. I thought the horse was in a perfect spot and just really couldn't run by because Bass and Comical are a little bit better than the rest of this field. But this is a pretty good maiden special weight field. Mike Smith's going to be aboard. It's going to be sitting right outside. This horse just can't be so wide on the turn with such a deep field. So we'll see where Mike Smith places the number 11. Smiling Shirley in the second spot. Jeff Bond setting this one out, coming out of a state bred stakes at Del Mar. Actually ran well behind. Been studying her. And then someone else in this field with the number 5. So Smiling Shirley ran a really nice third behind the favorite in here. You're getting the same type of trip as been studying her, and you get Joel Rosario, who runs well out in California, and he's looking to have a big weekend as well. And then the number 8 is Bulletproof One. Going to be the speed in here for Peter Miller. A lot of speed we saw coming out of 2 starts back in the State Bred Stakes, went wire to wire. 3 starts back at Del Mar. We'll see if the 7 furlongs is a good fit with the amount of speed in here. Bulletproof One, I think, is a little short at 3-1, but a repeat of 3 back. You have to use defensively for playing the early pick 5. But in the third, I went 11, 12, 8, 1.
I have the 11 on top as well. 11, 8, 9, and 5. Been studying her. Yeah, it broke the maiden against Open Company. Then went in a State Bred Stake, won that nicely, and off of those 2, they tried Open Company in the Grade 1 Chandelier. You know, okay, 4th in there. Moves back in against the State Breds today, so it looks kind of logical. You can see this horse had been in the barn of Jerry Hollendorfer. Again, Hollendorfer has essentially been banned from Santa Anita, and what was probably an overreaction out there. But regardless, if you see that on some of the horses over the weekend, that's the situation there. But again, moving back into this State Bred company, been studying her on top. Bulletproof One in the 2nd spot. Won a State Bred Stake 3 back at Del Mar. Followed up with a little bit of a disappointment behind the top pick, 2 starts back. And then moved into an open stake on the turf sprinting at Santa Anita last time and just missed. I think is going to be a good foot back in with this State Bred kind of company again on Friday afternoon. And Cholula Lips in the 3rd spot. The 2nd career start against Open Company at Churchill in the debutante. That was a number that really stacks up well with this field. Subsequently goes out to Southern California, returns to Southern California to face State Breds. And the last 3, the number just hasn't been as positive. But boy, that October 25th workout may indicate this horse is back on her toes and likely to get back closer to what we saw maybe in that Churchill start. We'll see. I mean, all 4 of the Southern California starts have been lesser numbers. So maybe that debutante was just a little bit of an aberration. But I hope that workout just signals some good form, and we can get in the mix at a 12-1 price. In the 3rd at Santa Anita, Golden State Juvenile Fillies, 11, 8, 9, and 5. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back in a few, continue our look at the Friday action at Santa Anita, which includes day 1 of the Breeders' Cup. Stay tuned. What do we need, 3 breaks?
Welcome to Albany County, an incredible destination to live, work, and play, with easy connections to more than a dozen cities from our vibrant modern airport. It's a short trip downtown to a hive of culture and amusement, from world-class shows at the newly renovated Times Union Center to reliving the past at the New York State Museum. From outdoor recreation to shopping to nightlife, Albany County has something for everyone. We'll see you soon.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These 2 arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Back to the Handicappers Report, day 1 of the Breeders' Cup. SULLY, CROTTY, and SETH MERROW. We're going to continue with the Friday card with race number 4. The 4th race this afternoon is the Golden State Juvenile. This is a State Bred race for 2-year-olds. They're going 7 furlongs on the main track.
2, 7, 8, and 11 for me. Cali Dude on top goes out for West Point Thoroughbreds, and coming up top of the hour, racing across America. And we'll talk to Terry Finley from West Point Thoroughbreds because they also have Decorated Invader, one of the contenders in the the juvenile turf a little bit later on. But this one for West Point looked pretty good in the career debut. The number certainly stacks up with this bunch. Purchased this horse at Fasig-Tipton out in Southern California earlier this year. The horse had worked 22 flat before that sale, and then validated that with the win in the career debut. Again, the number, pretty good. We'll see if this horse can string a couple together. I don't think this is a super big ask going maiden special weight into this state-bred stake here, because these are all pretty, for the most part, still pretty lightly raced. And again, number-wise, his career debut number stacks up very well. We'll go with another second-time starter in the second slot, number 7, Chipper. Second to Cali Dude in the career debut, so his number a little bit lighter, but again, fits nicely with this group. Nice closing effort in that career debut that you would think the horse will benefit from, and be able to find some education in that and perhaps move forward. And then Great Ulysses comes out for Brad Cox to face state breds after being in against Open Company in the first couple of starts of the career. The maiden breaker in the career debut was at Indiana Grand, followed it up trying Allowance Company, Optional Claiming Company, at Keeneland in the second career start. Ran fourth in there, fourth in a field of 10, but again, it was Open Company at Keeneland, so I think moving to this state-bred stake, Great Ulysses could be very interesting for, as I say, trainer Brad Cox, Javier Castellano on board. In the fourth at Santa Anita, the Golden State Juvenile, I have a 2, 7, 8, and 11.
I went 7, 11, 9, and 2. The Great Ulysses does scare me a little bit. I did like that one at Keeneland, and South Bend is a monster and looked like it that day at Keeneland. But I did go with Chipper on top in here, and as you said, coming out of the same race as Cali Dude, you know, I didn't think it was the best of efforts that day by Chipper. I think Chipper has a lot more for Mark Glatt. That's why I think they're kind of aiming for this state-bred stakes race in here. Evan Romine's going to be in the irons. Nice meet so far for him, 17%. Him and Mark Glatt together, they're 20 starts. They have 1 win, but they've been competitive in a lot of their races together, and last time out was one of them in a deep field of 11. So Chipper on top for me. The number 11 is Square Deal. Square Deal going out for Simon Callahan and Flavian Pratt, coming out of some nice state-bred races, won the Open Company last time out at Santa Anita on the turf. They're going to switch the horse back to the dirt. I think the stretch from 6 to 7 from where the horse was last time on the fast track, it's not really going to be an issue because this is a horse that wants to come from off the pace. Deserving lukewarm favorite in this spot because of what we saw against other state-bred company 2 and 3 back. And then the number 9, another Mark Glatt horse in here. Ran well in some state-bred races behind Square Deal. Has came out of those races, has been working well. It's going to be on the lead in here. I mean, this is a horse that runs the best on the front end. We saw that in the maiden breaker, going 4.5 last June. And then went to face winners in some state-bred races. So 10-1 I think is fair. You get Abel Cedillo in the irons. So I also love the owning name, Where We At. So I'm going to use the number 9 in the third spot. But in the fourth this afternoon, 7, 11, 9, and 2.
You mentioned Abel Cedillo, and folks who are kind of not watching Southern California on a regular basis. This is a young jockey, came down from Northern California fairly recently, within the last 6 weeks. We've talked to John White about him, and he's making a little bit of noise in Southern California. So if he's on your horses, you're okay. He's doing very well. All right, we kick off the Breeders' Cup action in race number 5, 5th race on the Friday card. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, a Grade 2 event worth $1 million, 5 furlongs on the grass.
112. 9 and 7. I'm using a lot of the horses coming out of the same races in here. That's the Indian Summer at Keeneland and then the Kentucky Downs Juveniles Turf Sprint. Obviously at Kentucky Downs. And Chimney Rock's a horse that ran extremely well the last 2 starts against Kamari and against Cambria, the 2 fillies in here. And it has a really nice closing kick. Last time out going 5.5 in the Indian Summer, this horse was very, very wide. Kamari kind of snuck in between him and and got the job done that day. But then Kamari had to go a little bit wider, so they were both wider. So Kamari ran a really good race that day as well. But Chimney Rock in the Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint should have went by Cambria that day. And then I just think going up that hill in deep stretch at Kentucky Downs kind of threw the horse off a little bit in here. And the horse has been training well, has a really nice closing kick. And to go from a restricted main special weight at Saratoga to Kentucky Downs in a 11-horse field and to close like that, I thought it was more than impressive. So I'm using the Mike Maker and Jose Ortiz, looking for a price to kick off the Breeders' Cup weekend. Also, earlier in the career, ran against Tuggle. Tuggle, I thought, ran okay in the Pilgrim. So the horse has raced against some decent horses. The number 12 is one of the fillies in here for Stone Street Stables. That's Cambria. Cambria is another horse that last time out looked great. Came out of Presque Isle, main special weight, beat winners for the first time very impressively. 8-1 at Kentucky Downs, and a really game effort to hold off Chimney Rock. And it's going to get a jump on the deeper closers in this spot. And with the amount of speed in here, and the Urals have a lot of speed in here, Cambria is going to get a horse that's going to get a jump on some of the closers. Let's see if she could beat the boys again. And then the number 9. The number 9 is Four Wheel Drive. Deserving favorite for Wesley Ward coming out of the futurity. And at Belmont, that was a really nice effort that day. It was a pretty nice field. He ran an 86 buyer. The American Pharoah runners just keep improving on the turf course. This horse has a lot of speed. You get Irad Ortiz in the irons again. So I think a repeat of the 86 buyer, which kind of stacks up against the rest of this field in here. Four-wheel drive, you're getting 3-1. I think that's really fair. And again, the American Pharoah crop have been running well on the turf course. So very tough race to kick things off in the Breeders' Cup races. 1, 12, 9, and 7.
I'm looking for a Wesley Ward trifecta, 9, 7, 12, and 3. I put four-wheel drive on top. Wesley Ward, certainly if you follow him enough, you know, 2-year-old sprinting on the grass, excuse me, kind of a specialty for him. And this one lived up to that, debuting in a $100,000 stake down at Colonial and winning pretty easily. Then comes up and wins a Grade 3 at Belmont in the second career start. Irad Ortiz sticks on board after that Belmont win last time. So four-wheel drive on top. Then the 2 Wesley Ward fillies facing the boys underneath. Kamari, she would be 4 for 4, but just missed on her sojourn over to Royal Ascot in June. Otherwise, 3 wins and 3 pretty convincing wins. Last time, it was the margin on the page wasn't much, but boy, if you watched her down the stretch in there, she looked great in that race at Keeneland facing the boys. So Kamari and then Cambria in the 3rd spot. Also, last time out faced the boys, won the sprint stake over at Kentucky Downs, and another one of those come from the off-the-pace kind of efforts that look very good. So, again, I'm looking for Wesley Ward to sweep the trifecta in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. We'll see how that works out for WW, but I have it 9, 7, 12, and 3.
Moving on to race number 6 this afternoon. This is the Juvenile Turf. Really another tough race. The first 2 races, if you're planning to pick 5, I suggest you go a little bit deeper. But again, race number 6, it is the Juvenile Turf, a mile on the turf course in here. What did you see in race number 6?
I put the West Point horse on top. 4, 2, 7, and 6. And again, a little bit later on Racing Across America, top of the hour, we will be joined by Terry Finley. Taped a bunch of interviews that'll air today and tomorrow. Taped them yesterday because obviously with the Breeders' Cup being out on the West Coast, when I'm firing up Racing Across America at 10, it's 7 o'clock out there, and on Breeders' Cup days early in the morning, might be a little tougher to get folks. So we put some in the can. I will let you know that coming up at the top of the hour for today, we talked with Nick Luck from NBC Sports. Nick, of course, based over in Europe, so he gave us some thoughts on some of the Europeans. We talked with Frank Miramati, the announcer out at Santa Anita. Got some of his thoughts on the what he'll be planning for the couple of days, but also he's had a chance to see some of these horses running out there at Santa Anita. Steve Beck, who's been doing his radio show out there, He's had the chance to watch some of the workouts and talk to some of the major players, so we talked to him as well. And then, as I say, Terry Finley would join us. Tomorrow, we're going to have Randy Moss on from NBC Sports as well. So keep that in mind. Racing Across America, top of the hour, 10 a.m. But, again, 4, 2, 7, and 6 for me in the juvenile turf. Decorated Invader. Just missed in the career debut, and then kind of validated the talent by winning the second start of the career and doing it pretty easily. And coming out of that, I talked to some of the West Point people towards the end of the Saratoga meet, and they said, we're going to be loaded for bear up in Canada. And sure enough, Woodbine Mile weekend, we talked with Tom Bellhouse from West Point, had him on the show with us live from Woodbine, and they were looking forward to the summer stakes, and the horse validated what they were saying with the win in the summer stakes. It was a win and you're in. They show up here. So I think Decorated Invader comes in good form and having shown good talent already. Probably has to step it up a couple of points, but I think that's very, very possible. Structor has looked very good for Chad Brown. One up at Saratoga, and then in the Pilgrim, he had to step it up, and he did pretty nicely. And if you like Structor at 5-1, how do you not like Andesite at 12-1? Andesite just behind Structor last time in that Pilgrim. And so I'll throw him in the mix at, again, a nice price of 12-1. Graceful Kitten is also interesting to me with some early speed. Comes in from a nice undefeated career so far down in Gulfstream, including a couple of stakes races. So this one has the potential to get a little bit overlooked, 15-1 on the morning line, but Graceful Kitten also interesting to me. In the juvenile turf, I have it 4-2, 8, 4-2, 7, and 6.
4, 5, 12, and 2. I'm right there with you with Decorated Invader, and watching that summer up at Woodbine again. Decorated Invader had a lot left, and it kind of looked like Irad was asking a lot out of him, but when Irad asked, he responded extremely impressive, and was able to win that race by almost 2. And again, I think this horse is capable of winning. Could have won that race by more than 2, but it's a win and you're in. They got the job done, and you're getting 4-1 in here with a horse that has a serious closing kick and showed a really, really gutsy effort in a 10-horse field at a tough track up at Woodbine, especially with that long stretch run. So I went with the West Point runner on top as well, Decorated Invader. Vitalogy is also coming out of the summer, 2 starts back, and that closing kick as well to finish third by a length behind Decorated Invader. Cadet Conley, I think, was 99-1 that day, who split Vitalogy and Decorated Invader. So Brendan Walsh, Javier Castellano, the horse has a serious closing kick, and we saw that last time out in the Bourbon. They went a mile and a 16th. I think the cutback hurts Vitalogy a little bit, but again, the horse looked great at the mile distance up at Woodbine in the summer, and that closing kick last time out in a 14-horse field at Keeneland, 10-1, is very attractive for the Brendan Walsh runner. And then the number 12 in the third spot for me is Arizona, going out for Aiden O'Brien and Ryan Moore. This is a horse that was favored at the Royal Meeting at Ascot, got the job done that day, and has raced well and has really raced some nice horses over in Europe. Last time out, had a really nice early lead, finished second with a nice closing kick that day. And also being another nice horse, Aiden O'Brien trains in Wichita. So Arizona has been racing some very, very good competition over in Europe, and that's why you're seeing that 5-2 price. And I know Aiden O'Brien hasn't been great in the United States. He's only 4%, but I think if he's going to get a win this weekend, Arizona's probably his best shot, and it's coming early in the Breeders' Cup races. So for me, in the 6th race this afternoon, the juvenile turf, 4, 5, 12, and 2.
Arizona scares me. I didn't use Arizona. It scares me. I just thought got hurt by the post position. At the mile, the 12. We'll know by the time they hit the first turn. I mean, with Ryan Moore on board, you would expect some decent positioning, but I think it's maybe a tough ask. But as I say, that's one that scares me. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll dive back into the Friday Breeders' Cup action at Santa Anita. Stay tuned.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Now it's a global series. The best racers from all over the world, the best trainers, the best jockeys.
You can get a free entry into the Breeders' Cup, and everybody wants to run in a Breeders' Cup race.
You get your travel expenses paid for the Breeders' Cup. Automatic berth takes a lot of pressure off.
If we're considering two different races and one was a win and you're in and one was a not, that would be the tiebreaker.
It's probably the best thing that's happened to racing in the last 10 years.
Breeders' Cup Challenge, win, and you're in.
In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
Special Friday Breeders' Cup edition of the Handicappers Report. Seth, Merrow, and Sully CROTTY. We will jump back in. Breeders' Cup action, race number 7 this afternoon. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, as the name indicates, 2-year-old fillies in a Grade 1 event, $2 million up for grabs, 8.5 furlongs the trip.
4, 6, 1, and 9 for me in this spot, and I think the Simon Callahan runner is going to go off as a favorite, but I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But British Idiom for me handled the big test last time out, and that was stretching out from a sprint at Saratoga to a 2-turn race at Keeneland, and he did it very, very, very impressively. Didn't go off as a favorite that day. You got 3.5 to 1, which I thought was more than fair, and you're getting the same thing this afternoon at 3.5 to 1. A lot of speed for the Brad Cox runner. It's not like they were walking up front at Keeneland. They won a 47-1, 23 to the quarter, and the horse was able to win by 6.5 lengths in an 11-horse field, running an 84 buyer that day, which is the second best in this field besides the number 1. The number 6 is Bast. Bass for Bob Baffert coming out of the Chandelier win, beating Comical and KP Dream and Comical. I think at an 8 to 1 you got to use in some of your exotic plays and super plays I have in the 4th spot, but Bass again looked very, very good. They ran a 49-2 that day. It was a 6-horse field, so I'll be interested to see how this one does against a deeper field like this afternoon, but the horse did win by 6 lengths in an 8-horse field at Del Mar, sprinting 7. So we know this horse can handle the distance, looked great over this track last time out for Bob Baffert. $500,000 purchase out of Uncle Mo, and you get John Velasquez to ride again. And then the number 1, I didn't know what to do. I mean, this horse broke the maiden so impressively by almost 10 lengths. The one question mark for me is it was a 6-horse field. This horse was 60 cents to the dollar to the favorite. And they're going to stretch this horse out for the first time, and there's a lot of speed in here. So I didn't know what to do. I wanted to use defensively because of how good that race was last time out. And I do like Uncle Mo on top, $800,000 purchase there. But nonetheless, stretching out, a lot of speed at this mile and a 16th as well. Right to her outside, 260's got some speed. To her outside, Perfect Alibi, and know is going to go try to get to the lead or sit just off the pace. And British Idiom has a lot of speed. So the first 4 have a ton of speed, and then Lazy Daisy as well. So I didn't know what to do with Donna Velasci, but I had to use defensively because of how good that number was. Ran a 91 buyer first time out for Simon Callahan. Flavien Prat in the irons, and those two together, they're having a very good Santa Anita meet. 30%, those two together, and on the racing year, 28%. So for me, I went 4, 6, 1, and 9.
I have it 4, 7, 1, and 6. I also use British Idiom, and if you look at the PPs, you see that R in front of the maiden special and the debut. That was one of those auction races, and that was brand new up at Saratoga this year. It was restricted to horses sold for an auction price of such and such and less. I think it was $45,000. This one sold for $40,000. And that meant that you could go up to Saratoga and you could debut a horse that you bought for $40,000 and not have to face the monsters from some of the bigger outfits that, you know, attracted 500,000 or $1 million at auction. So it was an interesting new addition to the condition book, but you have to consider that those were a little bit weaker maiden races. So this one comes out of that with a nice win, and then validates the talent in the Grade 1 Alcibiades at Keeneland. So it looks like, you know, Handicappers Michael Dubb and company for trainer Brad Cox just wound up with a $40,000 bargain, because that was a pretty nice win in the Alcibiades. Stretched out, appreciated the stretch out. I'll put British Idiom on top. Wicked Whisper, 2 for 2 in the career, broke the maiden up at Saratoga in an open maiden special and did it convincingly, and then followed that up with a pretty convincing win in the Frizette. So Wicked Whisper, I think, is going to be very interesting. Donna Veloce, the number 1 horse, yeah, I'm with you. This one could go either way in that the debut was a solid number, but it was a smaller field. This horse was an overwhelming favorite, and also it was at 6.5 furlongs, and now it's going to stretch to a 1.16 miles around 2 turns. Workouts, though, were pretty good, so I also had to at least put this one in the mix and use in some fashion, because could be any kind. We just don't know yet with only the one, albeit very good race under the belt. In the 7th, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly, I have it 4, 7, 1, and 6.
The 8th race this afternoon, this is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. A mile on the turf course in here, and it is for 2-year-old fillies.
9, 7, 13, and 12. Excuse me. For some reason, I just had a feeling that a Euro would do well in here, and so I went with Albina. Look back at that race on Arc Day at Longchamp. Typically, Arc Day has a number of Group 1 races on the undercard of the Arc that are fairly good races, potent races, and this horse won there for the 3rd win in 4 career starts, won pretty convincingly. Now, it was a soft course. The track condition will be much different at Santa Anita, but I just thought Albina, off of that win last time, maybe the Euro to tilt towards. On the other hand, I went with some of the Americans underneath. Chris Stahl, who came under the wire first in that career debut up at Saratoga, at 41-1, subsequently disqualified. I had John Kimmel on the show shortly after that. He was not happy with the disqualification, but said he was going forward like the horse had won the career debut. They were going to aim for the Natalma up at Woodbine because it was a win and you're in, but circumstances changed and went to the P.G. Johnson, won that, and then just missed in the Miss Grillo last time. But certainly we've seen a very talented runner through the first 3 starts of the career. Finished second, Chris Dahl did, in the Miss Grillo, behind Selflessly, and I tossed that one in as well. Chad Brownwater and Sweet Melania for Todd Pletcher. I know Sully said he liked Sweet Melania. I like both of these horses, Selflessly and Sweet Melania. I'm just thinking at the mile distance on the turf, being in the 12 and 13, particularly being 2-year-olds. But, you know, you have Jose Ortiz, you have Javier Castellano. Again, you would expect some decent positioning from these guys if it's at all possible. But they are up against it a little bit from those outside post positions. For me, however, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf, I have it 9, 7, 13, and 12.
Yeah, and I think the outside post is, I think 10 through 14, they're all pretty live in there. But I went with Sweet Melania on top. I said in the beginning, I think Chimney Rock and Sweet Melania are going to be my value plays in here. You're getting 5-1 for the Pletcher runner coming out of the Jessamine. Lost the P.G. Johnson by a neck to Cristal, and also raced well against Ask Bailey and beat Ask Bailey in the Jessamine last time out. And Ask Bailey's a horse that's raced well against a lot of these horses in here. And Ask Bailey ran second in a 12-horse field at Kentucky Downs the next time out. So I think Sweet Melania beat a nice horse that day. Lost to Cristal, as we know, a really nice story, who I'm going to use second underneath. And a horse that's going to be forwardly placed in here. I think out of every horse from the outside stall, Fair Maiden's probably going to get to the lead. And then Sweet Melania is going to break well with Jose Ortiz, who puts his horses in good spots on the turf course and makes the move at the right time, more times than not. Cristal has a really nice closing kick. In the Miss Griot, the horse was 9 wide and closed unbelievably that day to lose by 3/4 of a length behind Selflessly. Selflessly, I'm not taking anything away from Selflessly, the Chad Brown runner, but Cristal was just that much better than Selflessly that day coming out of the Miss Griot. The horse that won the P.G. Johnson, as you said, taken down at Saratoga. This horse has a unbelievable closing kick. I mean, you know this one is going to be flying late for John Kimmel. And then the number 4, Abscon. Abscon is coming out. The Natalma is a really good race up at Woodbine. They ran a 23 to a 48 that day. They slowed things down going a mile distance, but you got to remember, it's 1 turn up at Woodbine. The 2 turn, this is going to be this horse's first 2-turn test. You get Irad Ortiz and Eddie Keneally, a horse that raced well against Kamari, ran second in the Bolton Lane behind Kamari, who we both have in our mix in race number 5. Also beat Ask Bailey. I just talked about Ask Bailey, and Fair Maiden, who's in here. Fair Maiden right now is at 12 to 1, the number 10, who's going to get to the lead with Drayden Van Dyke. So Abscon has beaten some really nice horses. Let's see how Kamari runs in race number 5. If Kamari puts in a big effort against the boys, I think Abscon's pretty live at 15 to 1. So in a very, very competitive, as it should be, Juvenile Phillies turf, 12-7, 4 and 5.
We move on to the final Breeders' Cup race on Friday afternoon. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile. It's the final Breeders' Cup race. There's still a couple of races on the card, though. Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Grade 1 event, $2 million up for grabs, 1 1/16.
And with the one big scratch in here in Maxfield, I don't want to go too deep in a Breeders' Cup race, but how competitive the undercard is leading up to this race. If you're playing the pick 5, it's really, on paper, a 2-horse race. And that is with Dennis's Moment, and that is with 8 Rings. And I use both of them on top, 6-1, 5-2. For me, 8 Rings last time out in the American Pharoah looked very good. The chart margin really doesn't do it justice. The 8 Rings looked unbelievable in the American Pharoah. 23 to a 47 flat in the Del Mar Fraternity. The horse, watching that race, lost the jockey. And we didn't really know how Drayden, he took a nasty spill that day. Johnny V comes in to ride 8 Rings, a Windstar Farm bred horse, $500,000 purchase out of Empire Maker. So 8 Rings is going to be the speed in here. And again, in the 9-horse field, over this surface last time out, I slightly put the advantage to 8 Rings. But Dennis's Moment is coming out of some monster races. If we get in the speed duel up front, it can set the race up for a closer in here, like a Shoplifted or a Scabbard. So I had to use Scabbard in the 3rd spot. But Dennis's Moment coming out of some monster races, and look at the workout pattern leading into that race and then after. Earlier in August, earlier in September, bullet workouts over at Churchill Downs surface. And then coming out of that race in September, the work on October 11th, 18th, and 25th, all bullets at Churchill Downs, and then the most previous one at Santa Anita. The horse has a lot of speed. The horse has been working well. It's Dale Romans. You think of speed, and that's what you're getting with Dennis's Moment. And this horse is definitely the real deal. Broke the maiden by 19 lengths. Faced winners for the first time in the Iroquois. Won that race by an impressive 2 from off the pace. So we know Dennis's Moment can win from off the pace, but I think it's better on the front end. And then Scabbard. Scabbard did previously race under the name Noose, in case you've never heard this one, but raced well in the Saratoga Special. Lost the green, let go. They stretch out in Churchill Downs. Ran a really nice second behind Dennis's Moment from off the pace. So if the pace completely collapses, Scabbard will be there. A Shoplet that had some closing speed. Paco Lopez and Wrecking Crew has shown decent closing speed from a stalking roll. But on paper, it's a 2-horse race, especially with the scratch in Maxfield. I slightly went with 8 Rings. I went 6-1, 5-2.
I went 6-1, 3 and 5. I also put 8 Rings on top. I will say, I mentioned earlier, have Randy Moss. We taped an interview with him yesterday. Randy Moss from NBC Sports. That's not going to play until tomorrow, Saturday. But he mentioned a couple of horses in this race when I talked to him. In that we were talking about horses that maybe had gotten a little bit of buzz or whatnot. And he said Dennis's Moment, which I had heard, getting very good buzz on the workouts out at Santa Anita. So Dennis's Moment looked good. He mentioned, however, and I have 8 Rings on top, he said, I talked to a clocker I respect quite a bit, and he was a little suspect on 8 rings workout. So I just tossed that out there. I'm with Sully, though. I have 8 rings on top. You draw a line through the Del Mar Futurity where the horse lost to Jockey. The 2 wins otherwise have been very, very good, including the American Pharoah win over the track. So I'm sticking. I would have to talk to that clocker personally, and even then, I would still be skeptical of leaving 8 rings out. So for me, 8 rings on top. Dennis's Moment right underneath. Again, has been out in Southern California, reportedly working very well. You can see it on the page for yourself, that 46 workout just a week or so ago, 46 and change out of the Iroquois at Churchill. Dale Romans may have a very nice one here. Shoplifted to me is interesting at 20-1. Mike Welch, was hoping to get Mike Welch on with me this weekend because he's been out there for the workouts, but he was just too swamped to do it. But you can check, content is now free on Daily Racing Forum, so you can go back, and in fact, if you go to Equidaily, I have a link directly to the Mike Welch articles if you go to the Breeders' Cup section on Equidaily. And you can kind of go down and see what Mike Welch has been saying the past week about workouts. He, within the past few days, caught a shoplifted workout and said, you know what, he may be sitting on a big race. And I just like the fact that off the 2 nice performances up in Saratoga, including a second place finish in the Hopeful, I like the fact that they went out and got an early start at Santa Anita. 5th in the American Pharoah, but might benefit from that. I talked with Randy Moss, as I say, and we talked a little bit about the fact that the track is a little bit deeper out there, given the situation at Santa Anita. They've added some cushion, and so it may take the horses from the East Coast a little bit to get used to it, and the West Coast horses perhaps will have an advantage, or horses who have been there for a while racing and working. So shoplifted to me, very interesting at I think will be a good price off the last race. In the 9th at Santa Anita, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, 6-1, 3 and 5.
And the closeout, the Friday Breeders' Cup card at Santa Anita is race number 10, an allowance optional claimer. Non-winners of one other than, this is for 3-year-olds and up. They're going 7 on the main track.
I have it 8, 4, 11, and 3. The number 8, 3, 5, India. Goes out for Peter Miller, first off the claim. He does very well first off the claim. Number-wise, this horse probably has an edge on this field on a best effort. The last puts the horse right in the mix with a few of these, but you go to the starts 3 and 4 back, 2 and 3 and 4 back. They're very good. Now, those were back at the beginning of the year. This horse had a long layoff from January until September, but claimed out of that comeback, and the comeback was pretty good. So if this horse can benefit from that, move forward, and again, the fact that Peter Miller does well off the claim indicates that may be the case. 3-5 India on top. Second slot, we'll take a look at Eagle Song. I think class-wise is getting a little bit of class relief. Probably needs to step it up a little bit, but the races 2 and 3 back at Del Mar were okay. Now, those also may indicate the horse appreciates Del Mar more than Santa Anita, but I'm going to hope with the class relief we get to a better effort. And Justinian in the 3rd spot. From the 11 post, the Bob Baffert runner being lightly raced and showing nice improvement start 1 to start 2. Might be in a good spot on this stretch out from a couple of 6 furlong races to 7 furlong to show a little bit of an improvement off of the first 2, and there was nice improvement in those 2. So that horse should be considered as well. In the 10th and final, I have 8, 4, 11, and 3.
Doesn't get any easier in here. I mean, this is a really tough race in here. I went 10, 1, 8, 13. I could make a case for the 7. I can make a case for the 4. I did go with the 10 in here, Comedian Ricardo Santana Jr. And Steve Asmussen, a horse coming in from Remington. I thought his race against a little bit better in here, and has beaten some decent horses, or beat the one decent horse in the maiden special weight, and has been competitive against Laughing Fox, against Mississippi, and then the last 2 I thought were really good at Remington. So I think the horse going back to a sprint where the horse looked great, losing by a nose at the Fairgrounds, Comedian with the closing kick, and you usually don't see that. Ricardo, a closer in a sprint race, don't often see that, but you got to like the connection with Bloom Racing, Maddox Stable, Steve Asmussen, and Ricardo. You're getting 6-1. The number 1 in here, Joel Rosario, another horse that's really balanced, and with the amount of speed, I wanted to use the John Sadler runner defensively. Looked great last time out at the optional claiming level. At this level, over this track, I think that stretch from 6 to 7 it will help out the number 1 in this spot. And then the number 8, 3-5 India, your top choice. Coming out of some really solid races, race against Stormy Liberal, Battle of Midway, Catalina Cruiser, Skylar Scramjet, Stall Walking Do Share, so Whitmore. So a horse that's raced against a lot better than in here. You're getting 4-1. Another Peter Miller runner that can win from off the pace in here, so I had to use in the 3rd spot. But a tough 10th race to close out day 1. I went 10-1, 8, and 13.
All right, let me update you here on what's coming up as far as the card this afternoon. Minimums, there will be 3 nice minimum payouts. The early pick 5, that's races 1 through 5, $500,000 minimum guarantee. A late pick 5 with a $1 million guarantee today, races 5 through 9. And this is kind of fun. An all Breeders' Cup pick 4, races 6 through 9, has a $1 million guarantee. So again, $1 million kicks off the pool. Pick 4 races 6 through 9 this afternoon at Santa Anita. Increments, $2 increment, win, play, show, and daily double. $1 for exactas and pick 6. 50-cent increments, trifecta, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, and super high 5, and 10-cent increments on the superfecta. Don't forget, Bet 100 to Get 100 continues through tomorrow. Sign up for a new account and bet $100 in. It should be very easy with the Breeders' Cup today and tomorrow. And after you bet your $100 in over the next couple of days, Capital OTB puts $100 into your account. So free money up for grabs for folks who are signing up for a new Capital OTB bet account. Don't forget the Breeders' Cup bankroll, $3,000. Mike Callahan has $1,000 today. I start tomorrow with $1,000. Sully has $1,000 at the end of the day. Team has already been selected. You should have been notified by email, but you can check the website as well if you toss your name in the hat to see if you're on the team. But if you are on the team, you have to make a wager with your account today and tomorrow to stay alive for part of that bounty. And hopefully we juice it up so everybody gets a nice chunk of change at the end of the couple of days of Breeders' Cup racing. Special Breeders' Cup bounty bet tomorrow. Well over $2,100 up for grabs. Played a late pick 5 at Santa Anita. And all you have to do is do it with your Capital OTB bet account. But play it with your Capital OTB bet account, and you're in for all or part of that bounty. Tomorrow, late pick 5 at Santa Anita, the bounty bet special Breeders' Cup edition. And don't forget, Sundays here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Watch all the football action and all the racing action throughout the season. You can decompress after 2 big days of Breeders' Cup. Come in, root for your favorite team. If you're rooting for the Jets, there's no decompression. It only gets more compressed in that case. But
they're playing Miami this week. You got a shot.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, good point. If only they could play the Syracuse football at Syracuse University, then I would have I'd be guaranteed I would have a winner over the weekend. All right, a couple of good days of action coming up at Santa Anita. We'll be back in here tomorrow morning with another live Handicappers Report. Sully, good luck.
Good luck to you.
See you tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
In here. Stay tuned. Top of the hour, special edition of Racing Across America. Back in a couple. See you then.
TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.